Should Aussies get excited about Android Pay?
And why has the world gone nuts about Pokemon Go?
Vertical Hold is proudly brought to you by Alcatel. Welcome to Vertical Hold, the tech show where we channel surf the headlines in search of the big picture. I'm Adam Turner, and I'm here with a man who was walking onto the freeway staring at his smartphone before it was cool, Alex Kidman. We're also joined by Macworld Australian editor, Anthony Caruana. Anthony, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, guys.
So, Alex, what's new in tech?
Apple has released public betas of iOS 10 and macOS Sierra to gather feedback from users. They're simple enough to install, but as always, it's not advisable to run beta software on any phone, tablet or computer that you need everyday access on, as stability can be, well, a bit suspect.
Optus is refunding more than $2 million to around 175,000 of its mobile customers after failing to explain the details of its mobile phone insurance policy and overcharging customers. Some customers were signed up for more expensive insurance plans than they asked for, while others did not receive the 1 month's free insurance they were promised as part of the deal.
Figures from Kantar World Panel suggest that Samsung's Galaxy S7 has overtaken the iPhone 6s as Australia's best-selling smartphone. Although not everyone is happy with the figures, with Alcatel specifically disputing the methodology used. So Adam, Android Pay has just joined the small army of contactless payment smartphone solutions available to Australians, but should we be really getting all that excited about it?
Well, I think it is a good news for Android users, obviously, because it doesn't seem to be too fussy about which handset you use. As long as it's KitKat and it's NFC, not HFC, NFC, you seem to be okay. So that's good. That often in the past you have things like, Samsung Pay or whatever. Oh, sorry, you've got the wrong handset or it's got the wrong this, and that's one of the benefits of being on the iPhone side of the fence is that you know that it will work. So that kind of openness coming to Android,
as long as you've upgraded your iPhone.
Yeah, I mean, but generally, so that's a good thing. Like the others, it works with all the PayWave and PayPass terminals are already out there, so merchants don't have to buy new gear and you don't have to mess. You can just basically do what you already did with your PayWave credit card, except with your phone. And the ANZ has decided again that they want to be first off the rank with this, which is interesting.
Okay, it's interesting because ANZ have not only done the Amex deal, obviously, which Apple already had, and obviously ANZ's already there with their own bank. But there's also, I think, with Android Pay, we've got Macquarie Bank involved as well, which broadens the audience slightly.
It's a fair bit broader than that, though. It's not just Macquarie Bank. There's a whole raft of smaller banks. Oddly enough, this is the one contactless payment solution that my own particular bank works with, which honestly surprised me. I didn't see them doing this. So it's a bigger rollout than Samsung, which was Amex and Citibank, or Apple Pay, which was Amex originally and is now ANZ, by a fairly large factor.
Do you think that people will change banks for this? Because you hear people complain about, oh, Commonwealth Bank, I hate you. You don't have Apple Pay. I'm going to move. I hate changing banks. It would be in my top 5 list of things that I hate changing. So along, with my house and my underpants. So would you really move banks just for this?
I hear stories about people who move banks when apps update, but I suspect this is just for personal banking. Yeah. Rather than for business banking, for example. Like, I could think of nothing worse than changing my business banking because so much stuff's tied up to it. But my home banking, personal banking stuff, probably okay. I mean, I control most of my payments. I don't have that many automated payments going because I prefer to decide when parties get my money rather than them taking it when they feel like it. So it wouldn't be a big deal to me, but it is something that, for some people it is a big deal, and they will change banks over features.
Alex, you said...
See, I think anyone who would change their bank over them not having a certain payment methodology like this really needs to work on their sense of outrage. And I think that's especially true in Australia because we have got such a wide PayWave and PayPass culture already. It's already so prevalent that when you do hit those places that can't do it, they've always got little signs up saying, sorry, we can't do it, which shows how expected it is. And as soon as it's expected, it's not that killer feature. It's not that thing that says, oh yeah, look, this will work And it's magical and new because it isn't magical and new to most of us. Most of us are used to the idea of, oh yeah, I can do that with my credit card. This is just another way of doing it.
And that's the...
Now, when they can roll it into other features, so for example, Apple Pay in the UK will work with the London Tube. Once I can get onto a Sydney train or a Melbourne train and use my phone to do that,
good luck with that.
Then that's exciting. That's a feature that I might think about jumping financial institutions. But just having the feature alone, no, I don't think that cuts it.
And it's a much bigger deal in the US because, well, in Australia, we're one of the leaders in terms of contactless payments. As you say, you can get PayWave and PayPass pretty much anywhere, and we just take it for granted. We can go to the petrol station, buy petrol, pull out our credit card, and just wipe it over the counter. This is pretty new in America, and Apple's trying to kind of pretend that they invented PayWave and PayPass. They want it known as Apple Pay, and it was a big deal that I think Disneyland and McDonald's whenever started to take it, where Australians are like, yes, so what, everyone can do that. So that's why they're getting a bit more excited about than we are. Personally, I don't see that it's any more convenient to pull out my phone to pay for something than it is to pull out my wallet and wave my card. But if I'd never been able to do anything like this before, I'd be pretty excited about it.
There is one thing that for merchants that are out there, not every terminal works with everything properly. So, I mean, I've been to, for example, in taxis, I can use my Apple Pay to pay with a Visa card for a cab fare. But in some cases, they won't use the same terminal won't work using Apple Pay with an American Express. But I can use my card, an American Express card in that taxi. So not every terminal is created equally. I had the awesome experience a couple of weeks ago of eating out and going to pay with my phone. And as I tapped with my phone on the terminal, the server behind the counter said, "Oh, please don't do that." But it was a bit too late because apparently their terminals hang and require a technician to come out and fix them every time someone tries to tap with their phone.
So you've worked out your way to get a free meal.
No, I worked out where the closest ATM was because then that destroyed the ATM for everyone after me, and they could only, it would only destroy the point of sale terminal for everyone after me, and I had to go and get cash.
Cash for everyone.
Ouch. Although, look, honestly, I mean, I kind of feel for the business in that circumstance if they know about it. At the same time, that's a merchant and business problem. That should never be a consumer problem. You shouldn't leave a consumer hanging like that. I do know what you mean, that the compatibility is not 100% as yet, but you shouldn't leave a consumer hanging in that way, ever.
Yeah. And as you said, the situation in the US is quite different. I was in the US a few weeks ago, and I can't remember what store I was in, but I went in to pay for something, and they had 3 point of sale, 3 payment terminals. They had a PayPal specific one, and another one for one type of credit card, another one for their store credit. So, being able to unify all of that into one piece of infrastructure that everyone can pay with whatever card they like. I mean, in the US, it's a bit of a showstopper. In Australia, it's kind of Captain Boring because we've been doing contactless payment for, years now.
So, Alex, I kind of pride myself on having no bloody idea what Pokemon Go is. You better fill me in.
Okay, so Pokemon Go is the latest Pokemon game.
Hang on,
Pokemon
get off my lawn! Sorry, I just had to get that in early.
Thanks, Grandad. Pokemon is Nintendo's kind of monster collecting series, basically. There's also a kind of virtual fighting part of it. But in the case of Pokemon Go, it's much more, at this stage at least, about the collection aspect. And it's an augmented reality game. What that means is that it runs through your smartphone. You carry your phone around with you running the app, and it will vibrate at you and tell you, oh, look, there's a Pokemon nearby. Do you want to try and catch it? It's a very simple little game, but it's captured the public's imagination in the way that no other AR game has done to date. And this is kind of fascinating on a whole bunch of levels. There's a certain amount of nostalgia for Pokemon for those who've been playing it for 20 plus years or who may not have been back to it, combined with this idea of, oh wow, this is an innovative new AR game, which it's not, because AR's been around for years and years and years in all sorts of fashions, and even the core game that Pokemon Go is built on has been around for a number of years, but just not to this scale. Within a week, it's got something like, it's 25 plus million users. So there's basically, there are more Pokemon Go players at the moment than there are Australians.
I've always thought that AR was going to really deserve to be bigger than VR. I think augmented reality has a lot more applications to interact with the world around you rather than putting on a headset and pretending you're somewhere else. And yeah, you're right. It will be interesting to see whether this gives AR in general a shot in the arm, because it's sort of taken a back seat to VR in the last couple of years with your fancy Oculus Rift headsets and your PlayStation VRs and stuff like that. Anthony, what do you think?
I'm a bit like you, Adam. I'm avoiding Pokemon Go primarily because I know I've got an addictive personality.
Join us. No. Sorry, where did that come from?
It didn't stop. No, I'm not sure. Was that the voices in my head or yours coming through? But look, I've got a fairly addictive personality. I've only just gotten off the crack of Word with Friends, so I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with Pokemon Go if I get in there. Mind you, it didn't stop me from talking about it for 10 minutes on the radio just before we started recording today. But look, there's a whole lot of other interesting things that are happening. The bad guys are already using Pokemon Go, so they're using it to lure people to locations with the promise of Pokemon to collect or whatever it is that you do in this game. But luring people to locations so that they can hit them.
How do you fake the location of a Pokemon, Alex, or do you challenge someone to a duel?
Okay, so what's no. So what's happening here is that the whole thing is set up with data in the areas where it's officially launched. Which has also caused some interesting server problems for them because it launched in Australia first, in fact, and then a whole host of Americans sideloaded the Android version specifically and completely overloaded the servers. But that notwithstanding, most public places and monuments, so local water fountains and so on, are set up as gyms where you have Pokemon battle between 3 different coloured factions. And then the actual creatures themselves turn up semi-randomly, but there do seem to be areas which will spawn some of the more rare ones more frequently. So the way that you entrap someone, I guess, is you would say, right, I know that a Pikachu will spawn on the corner of this street and that street, and then, you wait there with your Kosh. This has raised...
So you don't
this kind of
put a fake one out there to lure people in. You just hang out somewhere where one's likely to pop up and there are no streetlights. Yeah, right.
It's the World of Warcraft gold farming thing in the real world.
Socialise. Yeah, or you somehow socialise a message out there that says there's going to be a whole bunch of
at Footscray Station at the underpass at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. But people, the usual hysterical people are jumping up and down saying the usual hysterical things about kids today in the end of the world, aren't they?
Oh, the good news is that the kids are outside causing their mayhem and not inside your house causing mayhem now. So that's a good thing. I found the other day, I was out running on Sunday and I nearly got wiped out by a cyclist who had his phone in one hand, looking at it intently, the other hand on the handlebars, and riding haphazardly along a path, not knowing what was coming, until I yelled at him and said, "What are you doing, mate?" or something like that. And he nearly fell off the bike, which was kind of quite funny, in a Schadenfreude kind of sense. But then he apologised and then went around to harass further pedestrians by riding into them. I also saw someone standing in the middle of a road with oncoming traffic on Sunday, looking at their phone, trying to collect something, whatever it is they were doing. At which point I thought, the end of the world is coming. There's no zombie apocalypse coming. Yeah. We've created zombies.
At least now I can hang out in the park in the middle of the night with my smartphone and not look creepy anymore.
No, Adam, you'll still look creepy when you do it. But it does raise these kind of interesting questions about personal responsibility versus the game maker's responsibility, especially because some of these locations that have been placed they're generally public places, but some of their data is not spot on. So there have been reports of people, for example, who are living in refurbished churches. So buildings that used to be churches, they're now private residences, but the map data that these guys had when they were building it said, that's a church. They said, right, well, we'll put something there. So suddenly they've got people hanging out on the front lawn because they're trying to, collect Pokeballs, or they're trying to collect characters or fight or what have you. And it raises this interesting question of where the legal responsibility lies. Now, Anthony, I think in your example, frankly, the cyclist was being an idiot, but people can be idiots like that without Pokemon Go necessarily. At the same time, should there be a legal framework for where you put an augmented reality obstacle in a game or an objective, because that's something that only exists on a server. I mean, that's just lines of code. But when it maps to a real-world location and people have some kind of inducement, whether it's a game or a piece of information, are there or should there be legal responsibilities placed upon those developers for the actions that then eventuate?
Well, there was an interesting case as part during the launch at the Holocaust Museum in Berlin, where a gas-emitting Pokemon was found.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was a lot of awkwardness about that, and deservedly so, I might add.
Now, was that put there by... Did a person make a decision that
be,
that should be there, or was that totally computer generated?
They're mostly randomly generated. As far as has been revealed, because I mean, there's a certain amount of this where the developers don't want to say, right, well, this is how it's all sorted out, because then people will literally game the game.
They should be able to geofence though. They should be able to use their map, circle areas like a freeway, and just say, don't put them here. I don't understand why they're turning up in the middle of freeways and stuff like that. Surely the developers, if they can specify this church or this area is a dojo or whatever the hell it is, then why can't they circle an area and say, don't put any here?
Well, there's kind of two answers to that. The first part of it is they've got a system in place at the moment that says, if you spot that there's a gym or a Pokestop in a dangerous place, alert us and we'll remove it from being in that place, which is fair and reasonable enough. And obviously, I suppose they have to check and balance that to make sure, again, that people aren't gaming the game by saying, oh, well, I don't want that one there, I want it closer to me, or I don't want that group to have control of it, so let's remove it. They've got to check all of that, which takes a bit of time. They haven't explicitly said that that can be used for people who are annoyed about having a gym virtually placed on their property. As for the generating things in the middle of freeways, I've got to say, having played the thing for nearly a week now, it's not super common. I'm not going to say it never happens, but there's two factors at play here. First of all, it just doesn't seem to happen that much. And when it does, you're still talking about a game that actually uses especially for capturing the creatures themselves, uses a fairly wide range. You can be a fair distance away from a thing and still capture it. You don't have to stand in the middle of the road to do it. So I've been playing it on and off a little bit on the train on my way to and from work. And that's a moving train, so by the time it actually spawns something, I'm usually a reasonable distance past it. It's not so fussed about that. It's perfectly happy as long as I've tapped on it on time to say, right, I'll start the little mini game where you do the actual capturing on that thing, even though, by that stage it's actually, 50 or more meters behind me. So anyone standing in the middle of a freeway playing any game or doing anything of that type is, again, taking their own life into their own hands. I'm not sure the developers have got responsibility there, but I think by and large they seem to have programmed it in such a way that it's not really a necessary thing anyway. Well, that just about wraps up another episode of Vertical Hold. Remember, if you've got any comments, hit us up in the comments section on YouTube, via Twitter, or the Facebook Vertical Hold page. Thanks to Anthony for joining us for the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me again, guys.
And thanks everyone else for listening. And remember, if you like what you hear, hit that subscribe button. Vertical Hold is proudly brought to you by Alcatel.